All right, I'm sorry, everybody. We're running a couple minutes late. We do pride ourselves in the fact that we normally run a really tight ship around here and normally would have already started. I want to make a couple announcements before we get started. First of all, Mayor Kelly is joining us today, and so thank you for that. Also, Mary Kay Hyatt. Where is Mary Kay? Okay. This is her last planning commission meeting. She's been serving for almost 10 years. So anyways, we'll wait till she gets here. I want to go over a couple things just in regards to how the meeting runs so that everybody's on the same page about how we'll handle these cases. The planning commission members have gotten this packet in the mail in the last couple of weeks, and planning commission members have had the opportunity to review these cases in advance. And so from time to time, we will take action without hearing a staff presentation. In every case, I'll read through the agenda. And so hopefully you all have an agenda in front of you. I'll read the case number and the agenda number, and I'll ask if there's any opposition here. If you're here and you want to speak in regards to the case and you are not the applicant, then raise your hand when I ask if you're here in opposition. Sometimes people don't raise their hand because they're not necessarily in opposition. They just have some questions in regards to the case, or they have some concerns. That's that time where I ask if you're here in opposition is your opportunity to speak in regards to that case. So make sure you raise your hand. In each case, where we have opposition or the staff has recommended denying the applicant's request, we'll hear from staff the presentation that's included in our packet. The applicant will come up to the mic here on my left, your right. Please state your name and address for the record. And the applicant will have 7 minutes to present their reasons for asking for the, whatever it is they're asking. After they get finished, they'll sit down, ideally in the front row. And those who are here in opposition will come up to my left, your right. And if there's several of you, I'd ask that you all, everybody who wants to speak, get out of their chairs, come up and line up over on the left side. Super important. If you want to speak, get out of your chair, line up on the left side. That way I can see that there's maybe 3 or 4 or 10 people that want to speak in regards to a case. There's only 9 minutes that we allot for opposition. And so if you're standing at the mic and you're the first one and you look behind you and there's 7 other people that want to speak in regards to the case, I only allow 9 minutes for opposition. So make your point, make it quickly, and say what it is that you think we need to hear. And then the second person doesn't need to repeat everything that the first person said. So we've had opposition before where every single person wants to talk for 3 minutes and say the exact same thing. That's not necessarily helpful to us. It's really helpful if you share something that hasn't previously been shared. After that 7 minutes, after 9 minutes, opposition will be done. And the applicant will have 2 minutes to respond. So that's how we're going to run today's meeting. One other thing I'll say is that if you're standing here at the mic, you're addressing us as planning commission members, not staff, and not those of you who are here for other cases or even the case at hand. And so all the conversation that takes place today will be between the planning commission and the person at the microphone. I think that's it. Brian, have I missed anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you covered everything.
Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. Oh, Mary Kay. So today's your last planning commission meeting. And it's been, what did we say? It's been 9 years or 10 years? Yeah. Thank you for your service. Yeah, this is not a paid position. So Mary Kay Hyatt's been serving as a volunteer on the planning commission for 10 years. And that's a lot of time. But that's a couple hundred hours anyways. So thank you for your service. One thing I always loved about Mary Kay is that she always brought a different perspective to things and really kind of a tenderness that maybe sometimes would be otherwise lacking. And so she would hear things a lot of the planning commission is very technical in that they're thinking about how cars are moving, where they're parking, how the building fronts the property lines and these sorts of things. And Mary Kay always saw the project through the eye of people and how it impacted people, both the people who were going to, be living there or shopping there or whatever, or the people around it. And I don't know, I felt like Mary Kay always brought a very people-oriented perspective to planning commission. And I always appreciated her comments. So thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I will warn you, at times we do move quickly, so follow along closely in the agenda. First item on our agenda is subdivision plats and variances, and it's item 1 on the agenda is SD 2022-0024, and it's a reflection subdivision phase 2A plan unit development lots 109 through 177, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in. I don't know the street. It's 2207 Udois Ringgold Road. Let's see, we've got a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case under subdivision plats and variances is SD 2022-0026. And this is a preliminary plat for Royal Oaks, lots 2 through 18. In this case, has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, this is off Highway 58.
Thank you.
Just a reference.
We have a motion to approve. I'm assuming that's with conditions. Thank you. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is SD 2022-0027. This is Sunny Ridge subdivision on Eldridge Farm Estates. It's looking for an address, but I don't have one.
Mr. Chairman, this doesn't have an address. It's near Saudi Daisy. And before we get a little further, if it's okay with you, we did receive an email in opposition from a Karen Whitmer. Eldridge Road there's 2 Eldridge Roads. I think this opposition that we received was the Eldridge Road near Birchwood Pike and Harrison. This is not this subdivision in front of you today. This is abutting Saudi Daisy.
Okay. We've got a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, first under old business is case 2022-0153. And normally if I have anything before planning commission, I step down, but in this case, I am the applicant and I wish to withdraw the case. And so as a formality, I need a motion to withdraw. We have a motion to withdraw. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2022-0172, and this is located at 1027 East 14th Street. And this is an application to rezone from R3 residential zone to UGC urban general commercial zone. This case has a staff recommendation to deny the applicant's request and approve. Other? Is there any opposition present? All right. And I'm assuming you're the applicant? All right.
Mr. Chairman, this was deferred last month of the applicant's request. I do believe he wishes to withdraw this request at this time.
Is that the case?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion to withdraw, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, first item under new business is case 2022-0173. And this is located at 5920 Dogwood Drive. And this is a special permit for short-term vacation rental. And it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? Oh, wow. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we also had opposition emails that were shared in a Google Sheet with y'all this morning.
Okay. All right.
There's also a petition with that. Emily reminded me.
Okay. Mr. Schultz, can you present the case?
Sure. This is case 2022-173. This is a request for a special permit for a short-term vacation rental in the county. You see on the screen is currently zoned A1. This is currently used as a single-family detached dwelling. Adjacent uses are single-family detached, as well as vacant land to the north, but everything abutting this to the east, west, and south of this property is single-family detached dwellings. Here's a view of the site. Well, again, you see it's a single-family dwelling. Another view of the home. Another view of the site. You can see the channel behind you, behind the picture. This is a view of Dogwood Drive, which appears to be very narrow going into this development. Just a reminder about short-term vacation rentals. They're allowed in any zoning district that permits them as a permitted use. In this case, it is A1. Special permit for STVR is permitted in the A1 zone. There shall be no signage. The residence shall not be rented out for events such as weddings, business meetings, or other such group events, and no more than 5 sleeping rooms. On this next slide, you can see the circle with a little leader point. This is the actual property itself. And to the north, about 2 miles perhaps, of Crestwood Trail, we had a case in 2021 for a short-term vacation rental. There was opposition to that STVR, and that was ultimately denied by county commission. I think one of the issues there was along the lake and the deepness of the lake and people coming in on boats to the STVR, and we had opposition. Staff looked at this request. The site is surrounded by single-family residential uses. The proposed STVR is compatible with adjacent land uses in that it's all single-family detached dwellings. The site has an existing single-family residence with 5 bedrooms, 6 on-site parking spaces. The closest residence is 186 feet to the south, and the parking is not immediately adjacent to the surrounding lot. So staff recommends to approve. Just as a reminder to the opposition and applicant and planning commission, this amendment, that's 2 months ago, an amendment was made to the county zoning regulations to where the approval stops with the planning commission. In the past, these would go on to the county commission for approval. That was amended to stop with planning commission. 7 days from today's action by the planning commission, either the applicant or opposition can appeal by writing an appeal to RPA, Development Services, that they want to appeal, and we'll place it on the next month's county commission agenda for an appeal hearing. Here's the site plan that was submitted with a request. You see it's an existing single-family home with a detached garage. We did receive email on Friday about there's some deed restrictions on this property. Deed restrictions are unfortunately private matters. We as staff don't look at deed restrictions. I think there's a deed restriction from 1954 on this property from TVA when this property was transferred to the property owners. And the deed restrictions from 1954, which I didn't see any expiration date, basically said the use of this property shall be for private summer residence. So that's just for clarification. Again, we don't enforce deed restrictions as those are private matters. That will probably come up in today's discussion. But this does come to you from staff with a recommendation to approve.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Mr. Farmer.
Brian, maybe I have the city and the county confused, but I thought if there was in the covenants and restrictions or deed restrictions, that was in the permitting process. Is that in the city? Is that?
That may be the city, but I'm not aware of that because usually deed restrictions are just private matters that are enforced by the private property owners.
So within the permitting process, if there's a covenant restriction, that is not regarded in this.
No,
in the county permitting process.
either county or city. Those again are just private matters. Either the homeowner association
Brian,
takes.
I
Correction
really
on
thought the
that.
city was in there.
The city definitely
I-
asks whether or not the HOA allows short-term vacation rentals.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah.
Good for that clarification.
Commissioner Highlander,
I did notice on here, it said Soddy Creek, and this is not Soddy Creek, it's Ware Branch. Am I correct, Brian?
Yes, it is Ware Branch. The name of the subdivision is Ware Branch Subdivision.
And it is Ware Branch. This is on the slough, not the main channel. It's on the slough of Ware Branch. I'm very familiar.
Ware Branch is, if you can see on the screen, Ware Branch is over here to the right.
Right, correct.
This property is over to the left.
Is in the backwater of the slough of Ware
Yeah.
Branch. And I looked at the area. I'm a pretty good judge of distance. And did you all measure that 189 feet? It did not look nearly 189 feet to me, the next residence.
We use GIS and we could be off on using GIS.
I'd say they're off pretty good bit. It's a lot closer than that, I think. But one thing we did, the county commission did deny the one very close to this. And as you said, it was because of the deep water, also because of the narrow road and the people walking with no, I was on the county commission when we denied that. This is a 17-foot road on Dogwood. So, and there are a lot of people that walk it. So that is a concern, a safety concern for a lot of the folks there. But thank you.
any other questions or comments for staff? All right. I'm assuming you're the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Frank Luscalzo. I'm at 6010 Dogwood Drive, Harrison, Tennessee. Can you hear me now?
Oh, these people are telling you you're not the applicant.
Oh,
He's in opposition.
Okay.
No, right. I'm opposition.
Okay. So we hear from the applicant first.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Are you the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You really don't want the opposition to present the reason for your request.
I'd prefer that not be. the
Yeah,
case.
let's hear the reason for your request. State your name and address for the record.
Tyler Hunt, 7010 Clarissa Drive. That's in Ottawa, 37363. We purchased this property with the intent to use it as a place for our family to spend time, just kind of a getaway, and had the intention of allowing others to rent it out in the meantime when the property is not being occupied. We don't have intentions to do anything drastic or big or, weddings and things like that obviously are not permitted by this. So it's just an idea that other families could come and stay there and enjoy the property the same as that we do with our family.
Okay. Well, you've got a handful of people here in opposition. We'll hear from them, and then you'll have an opportunity to respond to their comments. If you're here and you're in opposition and you want to speak, go ahead and line up on the left side of the room. Ma'am, you can go ahead and come back up, or sir, you can.
My name is Frank Luscalzo. I live at 6010 Dogwood Drive with my wife. We've been living there for 30 years. It's a very nice, quiet neighborhood. The quality of life is really high. And we were just afraid of multiple things could go wrong with this, is lower property values, increased traffic, and possible crime. And then also having renters go in there. It's a no-wait zone slough, and some renters may decide they want to go fast. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Susan Salerno. My property is 5910 Dogwood Drive, which is right next door. I'd like to go, if you could go back to the picture, whoops, of where you see their boat dock. While it appears that there's no properties adjacent, this is the view outside my back door of that boat dock. So we are in close proximity in the back of the lot. Correct.
Susan, can you give that to Chris? He's right here on the end. And hi, by the way. It's been like 25 years since I lived with you in your house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You and David
Oh my gosh.
up on Elder Mountain.
Ethan,
Yes.
I was looking.
Same Ethan.
I was looking at some photos the other
I
day of you. When
I haven't
you
seen
had
Susan
hair.
in like 3 decades.
It's
good to see you.
This isn't coming off my minutes, is it?
No, it's not. I'm not going to take it from your minutes.
I just, I've lived in this area for 3 years. We are neighbors that say hi to each other. We walk the neighborhood. We talk the neighborhood. We're very private, very respectful. We're an older population, so we all go to bed at 9 o'clock and get up early. And I have owned and managed short-term vacation properties, managed them for other people. They are a nightmare. And I could write, I submitted an email with my opposition. I could write a book on all the problems with these rentals. And I just am really concerned that, it says that your report says it's not going to have any long-term effect granting this. But once you grant it for one property, then you have to allow other properties, and then you're disrupting the flavor of the neighborhood. So I will defer to the next person.
There's about 6 minutes left, Ethan.
Thank you.
Probably 7.
Hello, my name is Teresa Walter. I currently own the property at 6,000 Dogwood, which is it's adjacent to the Hunt property on the end of at the very end of the slough. I just wanted to, I'm afraid of a lot of water traffic in the back. It's already pretty small back there. I can attest to the fact that my dock is only about 4 or 5 feet during full pool. Even further back in there, it's even more shallow. And I'm just concerned. I'm currently building my retirement home, which I was hoping it would stay single family dwellings.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Light. I'm at 5911 Dogwood Drive. Susan is my right across the street neighbor. And Tyler, you guys are back when I had a good arm, I could throw a baseball to his property. But Tyler, we would welcome you in the neighborhood as a permanent resident like the rest of us. But I oppose this short-term vacation rental proposal. For everything that Frank and Susan said, I don't need to repeat it. We don't want it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Vital. I live at 5724 Dogwood Drive, approximately 5 houses over beyond this. I've lived on this property for 21 years. It's part of the Ware Branch community, which was developed in the late 40s and early 50s. It has houses ranging from $200,000 or $300,000 all the way up to $2 million as we get on the main channel. Dogwood is a dead-end street. It's actually 2 dead ends. Dogwood goes into a dead end and Maple goes into a dead end. The street, as was mentioned, is about 17 feet wide. We have an enormous amount of seniors and individuals who walk the street every day because it's quiet. If we see a county sheriff's deputy up here, it's once every month, if 2 months. We all know each other. Packages are dropped off at each other's houses and we deliver them to each other. The power goes out, which it does quite often because it goes through some agricultural lands to get there. Neighbors call each other to find out if their power's off, to call VEC to get somebody out there. I would just say this is a community. There are no services out there or amenities. It's a distance out there. It is a single family neighborhood. We all believe that there are deed restrictions that restrict this to single family or single family with an interest in the property residing in it, whether it was summer or year round. That needs to be clarified with TVA, but at the same time, the wish of the people, and there's not anybody that's in opposition to them moving into our community and living full time or even joining us for the full summer, but it's not inappropriate under any circumstances for a short-term rental on Dogwood Drive in Ware Branch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I can appreciate all the concerns that have been brought up today. And I think that we share some of those concerns as well, in that we wouldn't want any short-term tenants who will be disruptive or cause crime. There is an approval process in selecting tenants through these rental venues, and we certainly wouldn't want to bring on any tenants that would be problematic for the neighborhood. And again, our target for this is kind of just geared towards families, and we're not looking to have people throwing parties or anything like that. So I believe the use of the property would be minimal and would be comparable to our own use of the property, in that I believe the people who would be staying there would be very similar to our own family and our use. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Are there any questions? All right.
I'm
Mr.
gonna
Highlander?
comment later, but not necessarily for him, but I do have a comment.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Have you ever operated these
Well, hold on just a second. The conversation that takes place is between Mr. Hunt and us. No problem. Anything else? Okay. Commissioner Highlander.
Thank you. If I could comment, the county commission had very similar, in a parallel less than half a mile away. We did deny one because of on Thrasher, and it was, it was very similar to this, but it was on deep water. That was a problem. But also we denied it because of the walking of the senior citizens, the grandchildren, on a very narrow road with no sidewalks. And I have been up there. They do walk that, and it is very dangerous. People that don't know that and go flying out would be. I think there are more problems than the gentleman realizes that he could come in contact with. Personally, I think we need to either deny or at least defer it until we get an action from TVA as whether or not it's legal for them to have commercial property there. I know we don't make that decision, but I think we'd be getting the cart before the horse if we make a decision and then he is denied because of TVA, where they do not allow a commercial property on that land.
Thank you. Dan, and then Councilwoman Hill.
We've been acting on this as staff for only a couple months now. And this issue is definitely short-term rentals is something that's a big issue for just about every tourist community in the South. And so we definitely, going forward, we need to look at other standards for the county. The city we have UTC working on a whole bunch of research about this for the city of Chattanooga. So I just bring that up to say, again, we recognize this is a tough issue, but it's one that it's not going to go away. We're going to have to figure out how to manage it well in the county and the city.
Councilwoman Hill.
So as a city council person, we very often have great respect for the council person for the given district where the short-term vacation rental is. And Dr. Highlander, you are the commissioner for District 9. And so I will follow your lead, sir. You know your district better than anyone. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? It's the will of the commission. We have a motion to deny. Second. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, I would fully support the denial. I would just say, just while we're on this, we should. I mean, you said a private matter is what's in the deed, but if it's deed restricted moving forward, that ought to be part of the permit process. It really should. The deed's public information. That's not hard to find. Probably takes minutes to find. It just, a deed restriction should be a part of the permit process. That's all I have.
We do have a motion to deny, and it has been properly seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, I'd like to let everybody know the applicant or the opposite, well, I guess the applicant in this case, he has 7 days from today to write us at RPA if he wants to appeal the decision to county commission.
Okay. If you're here and you were in opposition to that case, you're free to go. I'll wait just a second. Our next item on the agenda is case 2022-0174, and it's located at 6108 Ottawa Georgetown Road. And it's an application to rezone from A1 Agricultural District to O1 Office District. And this case has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Okay. We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is a mandatory referral. It's item 3 under new business, 2022-0175, and it's located at the 2500 block of Gun Barrel Road. And it's for a public sewer easement abandonment enclosure and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2022-0176, and this is located at 4001 Ottawa Ringgold Road. And it's an application to rezone from R1 and R2 and A1 to R3 MD. And staff has recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. Is there any opposition present? We'll hear from staff, and then is the applicant present? Yes, thank you. So we'll
Sure.
hear from staff first.
If you want me, I can just get straight to the recommendation if you want me to do that.
Yeah,
at
that'd
the
be
same time.
great.
Yeah, sure. We looked at this at the request. There's a little bit of confusion after talking to the applicant. We realized R3MD would not work for what they're wanting to do. So we recommended to deny the R3MD and recommend approval of RTZ with 2 conditions. A 20-foot type B landscape buffer, except as needed for ingress and egress along Ottawa Ringgold Road, unless there's existing vegetation that meets this code as determined by the building official. And finally, condition number 2, a maximum of 36 residential units, which is what was shown on the applicant's application. We originally thought this was going to be quadplexes, but they're 4-unit townhomes. So that's why we could not support R3MD. The R3MD would not work. RTZ does. And it is in compliance with the White Oak Mountain Area 12 plan.
Thank you. And is there any opposition? You're the applicant. Do you have any comment in regards to staff's recommendation? Okay. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve as with the staff's recommendation, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2022-0177. And this is located at 401 Central Avenue in 1048 East 4th Street. And this is an application to rezone from R4 to UGC and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we also did receive opposition, and I think it was emailed as part of your Google Sheet this morning. This is case 2022-177. This is just north of Main Street. This is a request to rezone from R4 special zone to UGC for apartments. It's 0.3 acres in size. Number of units proposed are 20. That's a density of 52.6. You can see on the zoning map, it's zoned R4 currently. To the north, going towards Erlanger, is C3. To the east of the site is O1's office complex near Eagle Stadium. To the south is R4, and you have R3. There is no UGC in this general vicinity, but it does again abut C3 to the north. There's been no recent zoning history for this piece of property. As you can see on the zoning map, just to the north, in 2016, this property, as part of Erlanger Medical Center and offices associated with that, was rezoned from R4 to C3 with multiple conditions. This is showing you the site in the brown color, light brown, the pattern. That's the historic district of Fort Wood. You can see a portion of this property to the south is located in the Fort Wood Historic District. This is currently a vacant building. To the north, you have office uses, which is associated with Erlanger. To the east is a medical office, and then recreation. To the south is single family. To the west, this side, single family. And then to the southwest is single family and 2-family dwellings. Here's a view of the site. This is Central Avenue. You can see the site on the right-hand side. This is a view behind the structure. This is the view looking towards Erlanger. And to the right is that office complex, medical complex. This is in the downtown plan, which is adopted in 2006. Doesn't really provide land use plan recommendations, but it does note that a variety of housing types are needed for sale and rental. Market rate and low income and single family, multifamily should be promoted to promote diversity. Build new development of minimum density 12 million units per acre, and significantly higher densities are preferred at this general location in the downtown plan. This request is compatible with downtown plan. It is compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. Staff did recommend some conditions on potential nuisance uses and to preserve the interior single family residential. The need for this rezoning is based on density requirements. The R4 would permit apartments, but based on the density calculations, they're going to get like maybe 5 or 6 apartments. They're proposing 20. Therefore, that's the need for the UGC zone. So staff recommends to approve with 3 conditions. Residential uses only, as this request is UGC, would permit commercial uses. Maximum height of any portion of a building or structure except single unit living detached within 15 feet of a common line abutting a protected zone, which is R1, RT1, RZ, R2, or in this case, R4, is restricted in height to 2.5 stories to 35 feet. So we're trying to protect those adjacent single family dwellings by restricting the height. So anywhere this property abuts R4, which is to the south and west, the height would be restricted to 2.5 stories to 35 feet. And then overall, the site beyond that is restricted to maximum of 4 stories. So this comes from staff to recommend approve with those 3 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right. We'll hear from the applicant.
Can we go back to where you had the clip that showed the overlay? Yeah, right there.
Okay.
We checked with Melissa Mortimer. It's not the GIS for some reason. That's not correct. She said it's not in the historic district.
Okay. At one point we had a discussion. She wasn't sure if it actually followed the property line to the south.
Right.
But it looked like this was the property line or boundary at one point. So we didn't really know exactly which one it was from Melissa.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So when we spoke with her, there's an existing, if you go to one of the street views, there's an existing limestone wall that she asked us to save, which we agreed to. And if you go to the other one, the Central Ave photo, sorry.
That's the only 2 that I have.
Oh, okay. And then the conditions by staff, we're okay with all those.
Okay. Thank you. We'll hear from the opposition. If you're here and you wish to speak in opposition, come on up to the mic.
Hi, I'm actually Melissa Mortimer, the historic preservation planner. I just want to confirm that the GIS is incorrect. It should follow, and I checked with previous staff who had had the conversation before and looked into it. It should follow the parcels because we can't really enforce guidelines on just part of a house or building. And I did request that the historic limestone wall on Central Avenue be preserved because it is contiguous to the one that goes into the district. So I didn't want any adverse effects caused by the demolition of part of it. I know a lot of the residents have spent a lot of time and money meticulously restoring their walls and would be upset to see that lost. And I do think 4 stories might be a little tall for on 5th Street. There's a lot of single story bungalows but we'll leave that up to you to decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kerry Cook. I live at 1046 East 4th Street. I live right next to the property. I also have a letter from a neighbor who is at 1035, William Snipes. He says, I agree with my neighbors, increased traffic and noise, possible student and frat parties along with excess cars would be considerations, and a 35-foot tall building would be blocking the view of the scenery of Missionary Ridge. My concern after living there for 20 years is the traffic. 4th Street has a lot of traffic, and adding 20 more units to that, along with the fact that there's still 5 vacant lots above on 4th Street that could possibly be rezoned to UGC, would enable another 100 units to be built along that street. And when I spoke with John Van Winkle, this was some years ago, about doing a speed test. He did a speed test on the street to put in speed bumps. He said the cars go down 4th Street so fast, if we installed speed bumps, it would wreck their cars. To which I said, well, that's the intended purpose. So there's that. There's the noise with the dumpsters. They're going to be emptied at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the view. Those are my concerns with having this 35-foot high building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charity Myers. I live on East 5th Street, and I only recently got some of this documentation, and I don't understand half of it, but something I do understand is 20 units is rather excessive if you only want to give them 1 parking space per unit, because those cars have to go somewhere, and these are going to be mostly young adults with 2 grown-ups in those units, and they're going to park on my street, and I already not protected by the city. It's open season on East 5th Street. And so I come home oftentimes, bumper to bumper, top to bottom of my street, and I'll have to walk in the middle of the night a block to my own home, which is unfortunate, but I can handle that. But what I cannot handle is coming home and literally not having access to my home because somebody wanted to cram 20 units when they did and not provide for parking. And maybe I don't understand all of the paperwork. Am I understanding properly that there's only 1 parking unit or parking space per unit?
We'll get an answer to that question.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my primary concern is access to my own home.
Thank you. Brian, does the site plan or does the zoning code have a parking requirement?
It does. I'm checking on that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I showed the site plan with screen that shows
Yeah.
the parking. It's parking
We
would
can
have to be
see
provided.
that, but it's hard to count them.
Yeah, I can't see. We'll count while we're
Okay.
discussion.
Well, and ultimately, it's going to be governed by the zoning code.
Correct.
So irregardless of what's on the site plan and in the parking plan,
Correct. This is for illustration.
whatever zoning
purposes.
says it has to be, it has to be.
Right. Yeah. This is just for illustration purposes. It may change 1,000 times for permitting.
That's right.
Gets through.
Okay, Sarah, come on up.
Philip Tuckner.
Can you turn that mic on, Brian? There you go. Thank you.
Philip Tuckner's 534 Central Avenue. My wife and I own a couple of properties adjacent in the historic district there at 1037 and 1039. 1037 is a 1,000 square foot bungalow. Been preserved all these years. We restored the one next to it, 1035. Also a small bungalow. And I guess our main concern is that the scale and the height of this new building, along with parking issues, but it will dwarf these historic bungalows and certainly change the nature. So the limestone wall, the limestone wall that is there on Central Avenue, certainly that feel that needs to be preserved. And then any retaining walls that are built, it would be nice if they could do them out of the ready rock concrete blocks that resemble the limestone.
Thank you. Brian, how much time is remaining? Okay, thank you.
My name is David Hetzler. I live at 841 Vine Street. I've been a member, lived in Fort Wood for almost 50 years. Been a member of the Fort Wood Neighborhood Association and involved in it for a long time. The neighborhood has come back from the near dead in the 50 years that we've been there. And the strongest part about it has been single family, not high density. And our biggest problem is always efforts to increase the density, and encroaching with high density properties just will harm our neighborhood in general, I believe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hal Baker. I live at 921 Vine Street in the Fort Wood neighborhood. And I appreciate Melissa coming up and clarifying which aspect of this property was in or was not in Fort Wood Historic District. And I would hope, and I'm not sure if it's within your capabilities for approval, but if there's some way that you could put a condition on this, that the design of the property was run through the Historic Zoning Commission, I think that would be wonderful, because the opposite is, if we have a 4-story aluminum clad building in that area, that's a definite detriment to the historic quality of the neighborhood. Again, not sure if you can place that condition on there, but if you would, we would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, is it? Yeah, Aaron, you've got an opportunity to respond to the comments you've heard.
I don't know where to start, really. The one comment about the proposed retaining walls, those could be like a ready rock limestone style. We don't have a problem with that. The parking spaces, I don't know if you had a chance to look at that yet.
I do.
But the site plan that we currently have, we're not asking for any reductions. They allow reductions in the code. It's one space per unit. We have at least that, plus bike parks. But as far as the parking is concerned, we're not asking for reductions on that.
Yeah. Good.
You can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Parking is for multifamily is 1.25 spaces per unit. 2-unit or more bedrooms is 1.75, but UGC also allows parking discounts if you provide number of parking spaces, shared parking. There's all these discounts that they can apply for, and they're eligible for if zoned UGC. But they'll have to meet the standards of the parking requirements regardless of the site plan shows.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, the only other thing is on the staff recommendations, they said 4-story. I think we'd be okay with 3-story max, 35 feet.
And would that reduce the number of units? I'm assuming.
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't?
No. It would, I think, if I recall, it would eliminate some of the on-site storage they kind of had for their tenants.
Gotcha.
So.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mayor Kelly?
As a resident of the neighborhood, I share the concerns around the aesthetics. It's whether a piece of it is in the neighborhood or not, it is on the boundary, and certainly functions as though it were in the neighborhood. I also share the parking concerns, very frankly. Again, this is not any old neighborhood because of the pressure from UTC students. So again, I'm new at this up here. I'm not sure, where we're in the process, but if you have anything to say about that, I'd like to hear it. I don't know if you would object to having this go through the historic zoning consultation process, but that I'd love to know your position on that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what it's going to take, sure. If they want to look at the building, I mean, it's not going to be clad in metal, as what somebody said, but I understand the concerns.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Highlander? I don't think he would want to design a building for a zone that he currently doesn't have and do it and take it through the Historical Society without having the zone in place.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that would be reasonable. Either we need to give him the zone so he can design according to that zone or not. Yeah, and certainly with conditions, I mean, we have a handful from staff already. But obviously the conditions we have don't address parking. The applicant has said that they would be willing to have a maximum height of 3 stories. So ultimately it's up to the planning commission. Mr. Payne?
I just, I might have checked out for a minute or something, but I'm seeing there's a 52 units proposed, but we talked about 20 units in terms of part. What are you proposing? A 20 unit or a 52 unit?
20, that was the density per acre, I think you
Okay, got it.
calculated.
Yeah, correct. That is the density.
Mr. Farmer?
I did check out. I had to walk outside for a second, but what can he get by right with an R4 special zone? I'm just trying to compare what he's
Right.
asking for what he has.
Yeah, staff looked at that. On R4, he can do apartments in R4, but the density, the way the density is calculated in R4, you're getting roughly 6 units max. It's because it's 7,500 for the first unit and then 2,000 square foot for each additional unit. Where UGC doesn't have a maximum or minimum density.
And is there parking requirements?
There is parking.
In an R4 special zone,
There is.
roughly, do you know
It's
what they?
roughly the same. It's the same, regardless of the zone. It's the use, this case being multifamily. And somebody mentioned earlier about the height. As currently zoned, he can build by right 35 foot or 2.5 stories on that zone.
Okay. Thank you. That
That
helps.
Mr. Thomas?
So I like, I mean, the notion of going through the historic commission for some kind of design review, I think is a logical and reasonable one. Because I think that's where a lot of the sensitivity from the neighborhood is coming from. I'm not sure how that works legally from us having to mandate that, or how the Historic Zoning Commission could even enforce anything. Basically, my guess it would be we would just be getting an opinion from the Historic Commission, and we would still have to rule on it. And to the comment made earlier, that having to go through all of that before this is rezoned would be tricky. There's not, the plans aren't under our purview, but my suspicion is that this is very large for this site. Not the building, but now you put in the parking and the amenities like dumpsters. I feel like 20 is a big ask. But I don't know what is appropriate without there being some more design work involved. So my notion would be to defer it till we understand the size and scale of this development, because I do think, zero lot line on Central, absolutely appropriate, but we're transitioning into a very strong and historic neighborhood, even though it's not in the historic district per se. So that would be my motion.
Did you actually make a motion?
At the end there.
Yeah. So we have a motion to defer. How I'd like to get clarity on a couple things. How long do you want to defer for?
How long would your design team need to develop this further?
As far as renderings,
Yes.
like for the building, Probably next month, we could probably be back here.
So I motion to defer for 30 days.
Okay, and what all would be expected of the applicant a month from now?
I would say a fully developed site plan, and hopefully some three-dimensional even massings to show the height compared to other structures. It doesn't have to be detailed. Just to show a sense of scale would be something I think that everybody could get comfortable with, even though I know it's not required. I think it would certainly help the neighbors to see that.
Mr. Payne?
I understand what you're saying, and I'm not telling you I'm opposed to it, but in large part, we talk here about trying to get affordable housing. There's a cost associated with this. And I worry also, we talk about precedent. And if we start requiring people to design the buildings before we even tell them if we got the zoning, many times you'll just say, I'll go somewhere else. And I'm not telling you I'm opposed to it on this. I'm just telling you, you're opening a can of worms with a lot of money, a lot of expense. And again, maybe this is the appropriate time to do it. I just say we need to be real careful with establishing that precedent to require that kind of expense. Because next thing you know, develop a whole set of plans. Well, that could be $1 million. And then to find out that, hey, don't like your plan, we're voting against it. I just think it's something we need to be aware of.
If I may, I share your concern. Again, affordable housing is a huge priority for the administration, obviously. But knowing and living there and the realities of this district being a historic district and already being very short of parking, I do think a deferral is appropriate in this case. But I agree. I share your concerns about the slippery slope, but I do think there are compelling reasons to take a hard look at this one.
Councilwoman Hill?
Thank you, Chairman. Given the fact that this property fronts Central Avenue, which is a commercial district, it's directly across the street from a large office complex. There are other properties along Central Avenue near this that are not especially historic nor aesthetically, perfected. And then also as we move into some of the other neighborhoods like Macaulay Avenue that surround this area, to me, it makes sense, this type of development along this corridor. It's not within the historic area. I agree with Mr. Payne that we need to be real thoughtful about the precedent we set, because while this neighborhood has an historic overlay, there are any number of other neighborhoods that come to us and say, my neighborhood is R1 only. My neighborhood is Highland Park and it's only this way. I only like the architecture of my particular area. And this body on the regular makes decisions to allow development to go forward. So I personally am not in favor of a deferral. I feel like Councilwoman Knoll, as the representative for District 8, could work with the community to determine alongside the developer what's going to be an appropriate project. That's my thought.
Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, I just put my voice in agreement with that. We talk a lot up here about setting precedent, and certainly setting precedent. And I hear you, Thomas, Mr. Palmer, 100%. I don't know. I don't know what we would do, how we would even review a design. I certainly know what the spirit of Fort Wood. So I'll be voting against that motion for that purpose. I will add, it just doesn't feel, the UGC zone, I'm not certain is what's the correct zone for this site. We often kind of quickly defer to UGC because it's our broadest zone or one of our broadest zones, and it's easier to develop under, and I certainly understand how you got here to that. I just question, I've got some questions of whether UGC is the appropriate zone for this site. So, but I will be voting no on design review.
To defer for 30 days. And it was properly seconded. The reasons for the deferral are for getting a better understanding of the parking count and the location, the number of units, and the amount of parking, and a more developed site plan. And sounds like a bit of a building mass study to get an understanding of the height. How about summarize the motion, Will?
Yes, that summarizes. In general, I don't disagree with the notion of the project, but I feel the scale is too large for its location. And I think context is important in this situation, although I agree 100% with my colleagues here that setting a precedent is difficult, and we are not a design review body and are not required. In some situations, I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get. And I have a deep suspicion based on my professional career that this is too much for this site. And if there's a better zone to handle it that way, great. I feel pretty strongly that more investigation needs to be done before I personally come forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a couple comments. One is staff did support this proposal just because, again, the existing site was used as apartments in some period of time. Maybe not the prettiest structure ever. And I think to all the points made about affordable housing, this is absolutely a great site to have a multifamily project. I would just say on the issue of design review, if any applicant came in with a site like this, even though it's not required, that site plan is not really required, as we like to have discussions about. I would tell them to bring renderings. I would say it's going to make it go easier. People, even if they're not conditioned or required, I just think it's usually advisable. So I think there's a step between asking people for renderings and appearance of what things will look like, and then requiring it as a condition after you. So I would always advise people, just because I think it does help solve some issues. Granted, they could get approved and go off and come up with a new rendering. But I think it does. I think there is some, once they've made I think I like to trust most developers and say, usually when they come in with a rendering or something, it's usually probably what they intend to do. So I just leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Reuter.
One more note, if I may. I just want to say on the record, I mean, I'm for the project, right? I mean, we definitely need more housing, and what's there now is an eyesore. Clearly, it's not acceptable. But again, I don't think a deferral kills it. It's just going to give us some time to slow down and have a look at a couple of these issues.
Any other discussion?
I've got a question. I mean, would a deferral, even if it's not for an official, to go to a board, this would be up to the development. To your point, the wisdom of doing this and getting some kind of rendering and maybe showing it to the neighbors to get there, even if they don't, to understand better what they're looking at, might make the vote easier on this body. I guess so. It'd be up to you to say, I want a 30-day. I would like to see a 30-day deferral so I can develop my plan further. That's not on us. It's on you.
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah, no, I'd appreciate a 30-day deferral so we can get that for you.
Well, we already had that motion, and it's already been seconded. And so I'm not even gonna. I didn't even hear that because I don't know what Robert's rule says to do about the fact that you're making a second motion. All in favor of the 30-day deferral, say aye. Any opposed? Not yours, Mr. Payne. And then, yes. Okay.
I heard just a rendering, or I heard some fancy words, but I think we'll figure it out. We're good. I'm sure between us and the developer, the applicant, we will figure out an adequate.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is case 2022-0178. It's located at 1413 Meadow Lark Lane. And this is an application to rezone from R1 to R2 and has a staff recommendation to deny. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? I doubt the applicant is just not here, so I'll read it back again. This is item 6 on our agenda. It's case 2022-0178, and this is located at 1413 Meadowlark Lane. Is the applicant present? We have a staff recommendation to deny. What's the will of the commission? We don't have any opposition. We have a motion to deny, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next case is a mandatory referral, 2022-0179. This is located at 715 Market Street, and it's for a pedestrian easement abandonment enclosure of an alley. And staff is recommended to approve the mandatory referral. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 2022-0180, and this is located at 1511 Mulberry Street. And it's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC. And staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other, which is RTZ in this case. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz, we'll let you speak to the reason for
Sure. This is
staff
case 20.
recommendation first.
Okay, sure. This is 2022-180, request to rezone from R2 to UGC for 6 units. That's a density of 35.29. The applicant did submit 3 conditions with that. Since this is UGC, residential use only, parking shall be located at the rear of the lot and maximum building height of 3 stories. I'll skip to the recommendation. This is in the Historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan, which recommends mixed use as a place type. Primary uses are 2 to 6 unit living attached, cottage courts, apartments. Secondary uses are multifamily dwellings over 12 units per lot, typically on A streets. Staff looked at this. The request is compatible with Historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan. However, the plan does not give guidance on residential density. It just talks about the number of units per lot. The UGC zone will introduce a new development form and a higher density to a primarily single-family detached residential area. Staff recommends denying the UGC, but recommends RTZ because it will allow multifamily up to 4 units per lot, whether they're detached or attached. This will act as a buffer transition from the commercial uses on East Main Street to the single-family residential uses to the south. And staff agrees with applicant's conditions. So staff recommended to deny UGC, approve RTZ. By going to RTZ, you would not need a condition of residential uses only. So staff recommended 1 condition, parking to be located at the rear and access shall be located from the alley. So staff recommends deny UGC and RTZ be more appropriate in compliance with the plan.
Mr. Schultz, I don't know that I've ever seen a quadplex in RTZ, which is what you're saying can be done.
Yes, I don't know if we've had any developed, but you can. You either do them either
So
attached
when
or
it says
detached.
4 units, they can be
Detached or attached, however you wanted to, or the amended RTZ. We changed it 2020, 2021, somewhere we changed, amended the RTZ to allow this in the
so
urban
by
overlay.
unit, you mean unit. It's not
Units,
4
yeah.
individual,
It could be,
but it could also be a quadplex.
could be a quad.
Gotcha. Could it be a duplex?
You could. That's why I mentioned earlier in our duplex report. It does allow up to 4. You don't have to do all 4, but it allows up to 4 as long as you meet the lot size requirements.
Okay. All right. We'll hear from the applicant.
Hi, my name is Lee Helena. I'm the applicant. When I met with staff originally, we went through every scenario, and RTZ would not be appropriate because the revision they're speaking of requires the lot to be 60 feet wide, and this is a 50-foot wide lot. So that was one of the reasons for the UGC. The other is it's within 1 block of transportation. There are 11 parcels in the block. Only 2 are owner occupied. The rest are either by an LLC or an agency. I was trying to do a missing middle that C&E has done, where it looks like one house, but then it has between 4 to 6 units in it. I was trying to do 6 units because I'm going to have to, there's no infrastructure here. There are no sidewalks. There's no buried storm sewer. And I know the city's going to request me to do that. The property will be sprinklered. There's nothing else sprinklered. Mulberry Street is 4 blocks. There hasn't been a new construction permit since 2007. And tomorrow will be a 4-month anniversary of a man being shot at this intersection while sitting in his car. No one else is stepping foot in this part of town. And you can't put a CPD camera in the heart of a neighborhood because they're going to be limited to the major arterials. I talked to EPB about using their new Dragonfly system, where it's like $30 a month, and you put a commercial, if you have a commercial internet account, $30 a month, they provide the camera, they install it, and they monitor it, and it's directly tied into CPD. So that's the way private development can help turn around these neighborhoods. This is definitely an affordable housing situation. This is a primarily Hispanic neighborhood. There's a new Lindbergh Park about to be installed to the west, and Planning Commission approved an RTZ in September on the south side of 16th Street with the same conditions I'm asking for. That case was 2021-0137 at the corner of 16th and Watauga for townhomes.
Any questions for the applicant? I'm sorry. We don't have any opposition. Is there any opposition present?
I would move to approve the applicant's request. I think this is a great project.
We do have a handful of conditions that need to be considered that or just the one, I guess.
No, I asked for 3 conditions: residential only, parking in the back, and a maximum height of 3 stories.
Jason, can you add those conditions?
Yes, that was within the applicant's request.
Yeah,
correct.
gotcha. Yeah, I just want to make sure we capture.
Yes.
Thank you. Did you have something other than a second? Okay. We have a motion to approve the applicant's request, including the conditions. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is mandatory referral 2022-0181. And this is for an unopened right-of-way adjacent to 1639 Rossville Avenue. And it's to close that right-of-way and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Next case is item 10 on the agenda. It's case 2022-0183. It's located at 2600 Walker Road, and it's an application to rezone from R4 special zone to M3 warehouse wholesale zone, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2022-0185, and this is located at 1018 and 1020 East ML King Boulevard, and it's an application to rezone from URM3 residential multi-unit zone to UCX3 commercial mixed use zone, and staff has recommended to approve the applicant's request. Is there any opposition present? Thank you. Is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chairman, we also did receive support of this request from the MLK Neighborhood Association, Ms. Carol White. And they support the rezoning for the restaurant, but ask the condition limiting the parking lot site to prohibit multi-unit residential, which is case 186, which will be the next case. But we'll go through these one at a time. This is case 2022-185. This is a request to rezone from URM3 to UCX3 for proposed restaurant and hotel. This is the former Lamar's site on MLK. It's roughly less than half an acre in size, 0.41 acres in size. See on the zoning map, you have UCX3 to the east of the site, URM3 to the north, URD2 to the north. To the south of this site is UPK, which is a park, and then URD2. Then abutting this site to the west is URM3. So it's a mixture of zones, this location, but it does abut and would be an extension of UCX3 to the east. This site was basically downzoned, if you will, in 2016. Prior to the adoption of the form-based code, which is in 2016, this property was zoned C3 or Central Business District, which would have allowed a restaurant, hotel, any of those C3 type uses. For whatever reason, this was rezoned in 2016. It zoned this to URM3. There's commercial and office nearby. You have residential to the north, residential to the south, and residential to the west of the site. And further east across Central Avenue, you have warehousing facilities. Here's a view of the site. It was the former Lamar's restaurant. I think it just burned recently, a couple months ago. It caught fire. This is adjacent to the site, which is single-family detached dwellings. This is a view on Central Avenue. MLK looking towards Central. The site's just on the right-hand side. This property is in the MLK Community Plan, which is adopted in 2009, and it recommends commercial mixed use for this site. Staff recommended to approve as the request is compatible with the MLK Community Plan. The request would be compatible with adjacent land uses and development reforms. So staff recommends approval of the UCX3 for this site.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. We'll hear from the applicant first and then opposition.
Sure. Name's Scott Smith. I'm the architect. Really excited about this project looking at.
Can you state your address?
Yeah, 1426 Williams.
Thank you.
So looking forward to this project, trying to reuse this building as it has been used in the past. UCX3, as was mentioned, is adjacent to this parcel. So the use of that site would extend just to the northwest to allow for us to actually utilize this property the way it was used in the past. The permitted use, I think, at the moment doesn't allow for hotel or restaurant. So that's the goal.
Thank you.
My objection is tied to the.
Can you state your name and address for the
sorry.
record? Thank you.
Brainy Pritchett, and I'm the homeowner at 1010 East 10th Street. My objection is directly tied to 0186, but 0186 is tied to 0185. So I don't know if I can talk about that with the next one.
Go ahead and speak to your opposition in regards to both cases.
So what they're doing is looking to take a terrible eyesore and turn it back into a functioning business. But with that, it is dependent on parking, which is the next case, which pulls me into it. The proposed parking lot is going to be directly across the street from my private residence, which is going to have a significant impact on my property value. And I spoke with a real estate agent, even though that seems quite intuitive. I just wanted to make sure I'm on the right track. And I spoke with a real estate agent who specializes in this area, and they said, yes, it will have a negative impact on my property value. Along with that, that parking lot is going to intrude on my privacy. I work a very stressful job. I'm a registered nurse, COVID nurse at the height of COVID, and my home is my respite. To be directly across the street from a very functional parking lot is going to intrude on the enjoyment. And
the time that I need to just be home. That parking lot will further increase noise pollution and traffic on 10th Street. 10th Street already has issues with parking not being enforced with law enforcement. There's dangerous situations coming out of 10th and Fairview when people are illegally parked. And it's just going to be happening more often with this parking burden here. It's going to increase pollution, and I know that might sound silly, but it's already an issue keeping the exterior of my home clean because of the pollution from Central and MLK and the train tracks. The alley that the restaurant and the parking lot depend on there, it is 1 car width wide. It is not adequate for commercial use. Emergency vehicles would not be able to have proper ingress and egress if there's any traffic on the road. And this is evidenced by when Lamar's caught fire. There was definitely an issue getting fire trucks in place. So that alley does not support two-way traffic or emergency vehicle use. This type of spot zoning is very troubling to me. This is very clearly residential zoning. This is something that I looked into before I purchased my home. What am I opening myself up to? And in my due diligence before purchasing my home, I was opening myself up to another lovely family living across the street from me. There's also a park at the end of Fairview and 10th that families use. They walk their children to the park. Quite frequently, I would suggest that I see families with their children riding bikes and walking to that park on a daily basis. And they would be crossing this parking lot area. So I feel like the traffic will put a increased safety issue in for people who are wanting to use that park. And we, in our community, we do use that park quite nicely. The spot zoning, I mean, it doesn't protect current users like me from the damage it's going to be caused. There's going to be an overall negative impact on my property value, negative impact on the enjoyment of my home, and a negative impact on safety. And it just feels like the burden is being put on those of us who will be right around that. So I would not be tickled to have that across from my house, but I would love to have some new neighbors there.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Councilwoman Hill.
Looks to me like on the site plan that's been provided, there's not an intent for the parking lot to open onto East 10th Street.
That's correct. They're showing coming off an alley. Here.
So we've got a multi-foot retaining wall and some trees. It looks like within the site plan it says maintain existing landscape.
Right. Here's the picture of the parking lot or the lot that's going to be used as the parking lot. You see it has that older block wall with some steps. They appear to be maintaining that vegetation, a portion of it anyway, but no access to that street. It's coming off the alley.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, I'd love for you to just do the staff report on case 0186 as well, because I do think that for us to approve one and not the other would be a problem.
Sure. Case, and they're right.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah. Case 185, they do need parking, and the form-based code does allow you to have remote off-street parking, just not in the zone it's zoned now, which is URD2. So they have to go for a different zone, which is the URM3. It does allow remote off-street parking. This lot is almost to the southwest of where we just talked about Lamar's. If you see on this, I think it's showing up, this vacant lot that's in between these two single-family homes, that evidently was used as the original parking lot for Lamar's when it was in operation. That doesn't mean any, I think it's just gravel. As far as form-based code, they would have to upgrade the parking lot. They would not have enough parking spaces to comply with form-based code. That's why they're seeking to rezone this one to the left. Based on the zoning map, you have URM3 to the north, UCX, and URD2 and UPK. So this again would be an extension of adjacent URM3 zone. Same history that I talked about a few minutes ago about this area being down zone 2016 to the form-based code zones. Adjacent uses to this case are single-family detached dwellings. There is a park on the western side of this parking lot. Then to the south across the street are single-family detached, and this is where the lady opposition just spoke a few minutes ago. She lives to the south of this site. This is a view of the site. You can see that there's a what appears to be an old wall with steps going up to what would have been a home at that location. This is a view of some of the single-family dwellings across the street. This is another view looking down. The site's just on the left-hand side. This is in the MLK plan, which is adopted in 2009. It recommends multi-unit residential for this particular piece of property, which is the minimum density of 12 dwelling units per acre. Within the form-based code, remote parking, as requested, here is a distinct, this is really different from commercial parking lot. There are two different uses. Commercial parking lot or paid parking lot would not be allowed. This is remote parking for a commercial establishment. That is a difference. It has to be within 300 feet of the proposed Lamar's restaurant site. The request is compatible with the MLK community plan. So staff recommends to approve this request for URM 3. Again, we did receive support from the MLK neighborhood. They support the rezoning, but they want to limit this case to parking only to prohibit multi-unit residential.
Thank you. All right, you can come back up.
Yeah, I think the only additional comment is just regarding the parking. In its current state as being used as a parking lot, I would assume primarily for the park and the neighborhood in general. It's just sort of, the intent's not to kind of change the use of any of these spaces. It's just to kind of create or, make it to where the offsite can be permissible for the Lamar's establishment. It doesn't mean we can't find parking in adjacent parcels. There's lots of parking kind of to the east of this map. So it's not a critical element. I think we could consider them independently, which is how it is here, and that's fine as well. But I would, no objections to limiting development for residential of any kind, just parking, just using it as it is now.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Payne?
Yeah, I'm just, the landscaping buffer between the, I guess, 10th and the backside of that parking, is that something that could be enhanced, or it looks like you're leaving it just like it is? I don't know, which is obviously I'd like to leave it what it is, but I'd maybe do something a little, I guess something to give a little more security for the neighbors in terms of their privacy,
Yeah, the landscape buffer is what's sort of required in UCX, is what we provided. There's a lot of trees in the front there, obviously, that we'd like to maintain. We could look at reductions in parking. Absolutely.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I just have one question because I'm curious. So the lot that's just, I guess, just beside that one, that's the current parking lot. It's not large enough, and I know it's just gravel. So what happens to that? Is that not going to be used?
Which lot?
Well, if I'm looking at the aerial, there's a lot over on 10th Street that that one there they're using. So someone said they're using that as the existing parking lot, or that was used when Lamar's was open. I'm assuming that's not going to be used now necessarily for Lamar's. That's why you're requesting the rezoning change for the new parking area, correct?
Yeah, we had initially considered that as a parcel for parking, but
it's not large enough.
You can't fit it. There's no way.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Chairman, just on case 185 that does not deal with parking, it seems absolutely appropriate. I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case, 2022-0186. As a staff recommendation to approve, this is the parking lot. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is item 13, case 2022-0187, and this is 814749 and 53 of East Brainerd Road and 1101 1113 Kinsey Drive, and this is an application to rezone from R1 residential zone to a C2 convenience commercial. I'm sorry, R1 and C2 to UGC urban general commercial zone. Staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve. Is there any opposition present? And the applicant's present. Brian?
Sure. This is
Mr.
case.
Chairman, if I might, we'll take RT1 and you can just vote on that if that's fine with the staff. We'll take their recommendation.
Oh. We're just used to when we see your hand, there being something. I mean, you got nothing? Let's wait for them to get in here. We do have a motion to approve the staff's recommendation, and it was properly seconded. Thank you, Mr. Price. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2022-0188. And this is located at 2514 East 17th Street. And this is an application to rezone from R2 residential zone to C3 central business zone with conditions. This case has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. The condition is that it's residential use only. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case is 2022-0189, and this is located at 1002 East 16th Street. And this is an application to rezone from R3 to UGC. And it has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Any concern with the conditions? We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is a mandatory referral, item 16 on our agenda. It's case 2022-0190, and this is located at 1944 North Point Boulevard and is a sewer easement abandonment and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, 17 on our agenda, 2022-0191 is located at 3400 Cummings Road. And this is an application to rezone from M2 light industrial zone to M1 manufacturing zone. Staff has recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve another. Is there any opposition present? It's like Mike Price being in opposition. We'll take it. And is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz.
Sure, I'll just go straight to the recommendation. I'll go back to zoning map really. This case 2022-191. This request was rezoned from M2 light industrial zone to M1. It's about 53 acres in size. Proposed industrial use, prepare the site by quarrying stone on the site. So also only use a rock or a quarry for clearing the site. Look at the zoning map. It's all surrounded by manufacturing. The closest residential is all to the west across I-24, to the west over here. I do have R4 and to the north along Cummings Road, but this general vicinity, it's all manufacturing. This is behind Covenant Transport to give you an idea of where the property is. It's currently a vacant piece of property. To the north is vacant and industrial uses. To the west is trucking, Covenant Transport, and their facility. And then again, the residential is across I-24 to the west, which is Black Creek or Cummings Cove. A really not a good way to get to the site, but you can see this is a view of Cummings Road. The site is just on the right-hand side behind those trees. This property is in Lookout Valley Land Use Plan, which is adopted 2003. That plan recommends industrial manufacturing for this site. One of the things that staff talked about was the use of a quarry. Quarries are not allowed in M1. They have to be in an M4 zone. So staff recommend deny the M1 zone, but recommend M4. And the M4 does state that you can also do some of the similar uses in M1. So staff looked at it that way because of the quarrying on the site does require M4. Some of the same M1 zone uses are allowed in M4. So that's why staff recommended to go the M4 zone with the condition: quarry and all other industrial uses in the M1 zone, subject to specific requirements of Article 5, Sections 38, 301, 302, and 303 uses only. So basically that refers back to the M1 zones. So it's approved M4 subject to the following condition. Here's a site plan submitted with a request.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? I do have a quick question. Maybe it's for the applicant. Do you know why they're wanting this property rezoned? Maybe that's on you, Donna.
Okay, Donna Shepherd, AD Engineering. This property is a larger piece of property than what is outlined there. I don't know if Brian can show the full extent of it, but the majority of it is M1. When we originally made application, we had spoken with RPA. We all thought that M1 would allow for quarrying. We kind of went back and forth and talked to Randy Ridge and zoning, and I think as of last week, we determined that the appropriate zone is M4. So we are okay with the M4 designation. This is, as you saw from the aerial, there's a lot of distribution centers in this area. It's got close proximity to the interstate. Our client has been working on this parcel for a while and has had several interested parties. He has worked with the Chamber of Commerce and Charles Wood on the manufacturing side of this. And so the end game, the reason why we are rezoning this, if it were not for the true definition of quarry, which means that you are going to crush the rock, we could do this with the M2 zone. So if we had a regular land disturbance permit, we could bust out rock to achieve a developable site. But because they want to crush the rock on site as opposed to taking the large boulders, taking it off site somewhere else and dealing with it, we have to do the M4 designation. They already have a permit on this property as a borrow pit, but they've already had a couple of people walk away from deals because of the expense of breaking up the rock. And so the reason why they want to have the quarry designation is to offset some of the development costs. So bar none, the end game, as I understand it, is to get it to a developable site. They actually had somebody interested in doing 2 million square foot warehouses here. I think Mercedes looked at it a couple of years back and they walked. So we want to get this to a developable site. I found out earlier today that we did have opposition from Black Creek. We stood outside and spoke with them a few minutes, and their concern is longevity of a quarry. So once we get a quarry designation, as Brian said, that a lot of the same uses, which was my concern when we originally had the staff recommendation of M4 was, I don't want a down zone. I want to keep an M2 or M1 designation. So a lot of those same uses in M4 or in M1 are allowed in M4. So I don't know how to kind of codify or quantify it not being a long-term quarry, which is the concern from Rock Creek. They do not have an issue with having a developable site that's used for manufacturing use, which is what we stated. So that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I mean, I'm asking a question. You're telling me if you bust up rock on a site, it becomes you need a quarry designation? Because it's done all over. I see it all over the place.
Brian, can you read the definition of quarry for us, please? Do you have that? Because I went back and looked at this. We had a number of conversations with Brian because I thought, well, do we really have to rezone this to M4 just to break this up? And I think it's the act of crushing it up and possibly selling the rock that makes it a quarry.
Clarify. That was Randy Ridge, not me. I'm not the codes
I'm
enforcement.
sorry.
No, yeah, we don't enforce the zoning code. That's all through codes enforcement. We help interpret some things. That really, that's the code enforcement office. It does state in the M4 zone that you can do crushing of stone if it's associated with construction on the site. Like if they had a building they were trying to build, it was not intended that you had to rezone to M4. But right now, there's no intended user on the site. And I think Randy has taken the opinion because of that and the noise associated with it. It has to be an M4 to crush the stone.
So, well, we think the best use of that property is an industrial use, and to try to prepare the property for it, we're having to rezone a piece of property to do that. That seems
correct.
That doesn't seem very efficient to me. I mean, is there a way to? Can you give a variance for them to do
a big use variance? What it says, it is the intent of this ordinance to require the property be zoned M4 for the use of a portable rock crushers and sawmills at a construction site for a specific project. Such equipment shall not be permitted on a permanent base except in the M4 zone. The Director of Codes Administration shall have the authority to determine if the use of such equipment has been established on a permanent basis.
Permanent basis meaning permanent?
Yes, and it's all in the M4 zone. You look at the M1, it references you back to the M4, and that's where it talks about quarries. I'm not saying this is a perfect zone the way it's written. That's what we're dealing with.
But you would be, I mean, I guess to do what they really want to do, and I would assume the city would want to have done, or the county, you have to change the zoning, get the rock out of there, and then change the zoning back. Is it?
Use M4 for other uses too.
Yeah, you could use the M4 to what they're wanting to do. I think it sounds like the question is longevity of that quarry. Does this become a permanent quarry?
And in the case of, if you're just, I guess it's the scale of what they're trying to do. It could take a year, I don't know, 2 years. And I mean, it's kind of odd.
But I get my problem would be that I think if you went to an M4, then they could in fact leave it a quarry, right?
They could.
So that would be the bigger, I mean, that seems counterproductive to what is trying to be done. So do y'all have a suggestion on how to handle this?
We're following under what codes enforcement told us to do.
The confusing thing is Vulcan over on Shalford Road is M1.
And I would say that.
No.
Let's hear from the opposition.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andy Stone. I am the master and the developer at Black Creek. I also am here wearing my homeowner association hats, representing the 600 residents at Black Creek. You know, we're not opposed to the industrial use of this site, not at all. But we just found out about this over the weekend. We were not in the notification window, so at a minimum, we're asking for a deferral today. Barry so eloquently hit the nail on the head. You start zoning this thing to a quarry. There's no restrictions on time limit applications. There's also a massive zoning change time from an M2 to an M4. M2 is pretty much environmentally friendly, you know, warehousing, right? It's inside, it's enclosed, it's dust free. You know, you start flipping over to these heavy uses, dust, traffic, transit, and everything else. No site plans, nothing else whatsoever except a mass rezone. We just can't, my residents will eat me alive if we don't oppose a development. So if they do have a plan, it'd be great to see 2 1 million square foot warehouses, site grading plan showing how much rock, how long of duration. I moved quite a bit of dirt out of Black Creek. We used on-site crushers for the operations, had no issues. They're portable. They come in, they can crush rock, process it for on-site use and everything else. I think the issue here is the applicant is trying to sell the material. And again, once they start, what's to say they won't come back and try to rezone the M1 to M4 as a down zone and big open to actual true quarry. Mr. Ramsey is in the materials business. He imports sand and aggregates here in town. So again, I'm not saying they're being disingenuous, but we literally caught wind of this over the weekend being outside the notification zone. So I'm asking here for a minimal to either reject this or to defer it for some period of time until we see a better understanding of what exactly is going on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Price is very useful today. What we would like to recommend, because I understand the concerns of Black Creek and Mr. Payne, is if we were to set an elevation of, we would take rock down to this elevation, and that would be it, then that would limit the scope. I can't give you an elevation today, but I would say that it's kind of a null. It would be something very similar around the edge of the existing grade, and I could have that before we go to city council, if they would be amenable to that. Well, I mean, I think he wants to develop. I mean, we've looked at this site for a long time with him. His intent is to sell this. Like I said, he had a deal earlier this year for 2 million square foot warehouses. He wants this parcel to develop.
In fairness to what Andy said earlier, if it's rezoned, regardless of whether or not there's any more rock being removed from the ground there, quarry activities can still take place there.
Yeah.
So, doesn't change the fact that the crushers could end up there on a permanent basis.
Mr. Chairman, and the way the
obviously
M4 is written, the way I keep reading this, it's not the intent of this ordinance to require the property to be zoned M4 for the use of portable rock crushers and sawmills if the construction is for a specific project. So in this case, there is no specific project. If there was a specific project, they wouldn't even have to rezone it. It's because there's no specific project.
A land disturbance permit to flatten that property is a specific project. And if they already have a land disturbance permit, which I'm assuming you do.
Yes.
So they already have a specific project.
And you were told to rezone from Randy?
The M zones are very confusing, and so we've run around in circles on this. It is a very, very large tract, and what I had told Andy is the only portion of the site that would be allowed for this quarrying would be the M2 zone. So the rest of it is already M1, and according to the ordinance, no quarrying would be allowed in the other part of the zone.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say, if the planning commission decides to defer it or go ahead and recommend approval or whatever other action, we're happy to take this back to city attorneys, talk about it again. If for some reason we decide that they don't need to even apply, they can withdraw. If not, we are happy to bring, when it goes forward, we'll have the kind of consensus view of law and planning about what's the right thing to do, and LDO.
They didn't name a building or a particular building. You're saying that's not a specific. I mean, if I came to you and
Well,
said,
it's not Brian saying anything.
I know,
It's
but
Randy.
the argument, I get
It's
it,
codes enforcement.
the decision, right?
And what I think the confusion is when you look at M1, it specifically says any lawful use except those specifically mentioned in the section. Well, that section refers to the M4 zone. The M4 is where it says quarries are only allowed. So I think that's where it's coming from. They're saying you have to do an M4 zone to do the quarry, regardless if it's permanent or temporary.
Right. And I guess my contention or my understanding would be as a specific
could be the fact that I want to level this site to sell warehousing. That's my specific use, I would assume. I don't think I have to name who the person is and what size building and, anyway.
Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the applicant. Is a deferral something y'all would consider 30 days? So hopefully we can get further clarification, because we may not have a problem is what I'm hoping here is after y'all get together with the city again, work it out where you may not even need this rezone.
We could defer.
You could. Motion to defer 30 days.
We have a motion to defer for 30 days and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 18 on our agenda is a mandatory referral 2022-0184, and this is located at 501 West 12th Street. And it's a public property surplus and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Hyatt, I will only entertain a motion from one person on the planning commission on this last case here. Item 19 on our agenda, mandatory referral 2022-0208. This is located at 9301 Thrasher Trail, and it's property acquisition and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? Thank you, Ms. Hyatt. We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is amendments and resolutions. There are none. We do have time on our agenda for public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any? Mike, why are you still here? Okay, you're making me nervous. You're sitting there, I'm thinking, why is he here? Normally you've got something. Does staff have any updates? Okay.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you to Lisa. Lisa's here in the back. She's no longer working with the Department of Planning. She's now with Community Development, doing a lot of, I guess, what her heart interests are in terms of working with the community and different groups. That's we're filling her position, have it advertised, I guess. We have a staff person that's filling in right now, but eventually we'll have someone permanently in that job. On other updates, we are, officially have kicked off the zoning ordinance update for City of Chattanooga. We'll be bringing you updates of that every month, and we will also be having a lot of public meetings to help folks just get comfortable with the process. Right now, that's pretty much all that's happening is just talking about the process. Eventually, we will have things to review from our consultant, probably be a couple months from now. But we also have other planning activities in the works. We have advertised right now on the city website we're looking for 2 consultant teams, one for the unincorporated county and one for the city that'll be working over the next 12 to 18 months, updating all of our area plans. Again, I don't expect to have a lot of public involvement or anything like that this year. I think we'll probably just be working with consultants and trying to develop a lot of information to help us all, planning commission, elected officials, just kind of understand a lot of our current conditions. And then we're also updating that it'll actually support all that, those two consultant teams. We're going to update our market study over the next few months. And again, probably have some of y'all involved in that. Just to sort of, again, get a snapshot of what's happening right now, both commercial properties and residential in the city and the county, just trying to understand market directions and needs and affordable housing issues and all that. So again, just really just trying to use that use that planning work at this time to really, at least for the next probably 6 months, just digging into a lot of our, our historical issues and data. But eventually, we'll have some public meetings and discussions about all that, obviously. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Can I get approval of the planning commission minutes of July 11th, 2022? We have a motion that has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And Ms. Hyatt, I need a motion to adjourn. We can drag it out. I've got an hour before my next meeting. Thank you.